be and is not for there to be and is. So it just is. That's its quality. That's its nature. Its existence itself. There is no why to it. There is only why within it.
Perfectly logical.
Yes.
Are the God archetypes built into a place and people the way information from the zodiac and constellations are? Or is it primarily a cultural thing?
Well, it's both, in the sense that the very idea of archetypes is built into the collective consciousness, the fabric of your collective consciousness, in order to give you the ability to experience symbols and signs and reflections from different symbols in your reality, different symbols in physical reality that can reflect to you different portions of your consciousness, help you get in touch with the rules of the game that you set up for yourselves to have an earth game experience. So it's built in, but it's also reflected because it's built in by any permission slip symbol you choose to use to connect you to the archetypal vibrational level of energy.
And since many gods are interdimensional beings, do any of them take human form and physically interact on occasion with humans, such as in the tales of Zeus? Does Zeus still visit Earth to do activities, even though he's fallen out of popularity as a symbol? And does Zeus have a message for the audience today?
The Zeus archetype still functions in your collective consciousness, of course, because once created in that way, nothing ever really leaves it. But it's perceived very differently because you have modernized yourselves to not necessarily represent it in the form of an idea called a god. But to answer the first question, yes, there are extra dimensional beings and spirit beings who can take physical form and can represent themselves in a way that you're familiar enough with that you're willing to accept them in your reality. But in a sense, it's a disguise, it's a translation of who they really are or what they really are that makes itself known to you that way so that a connection can be made that you would recognize. So the idea of going back to Zeus is that the fundamental principle that Zeus represents in your society in this modern day and age is the idea of what you call the lightning strike of inspiration. You still even use the idea, oh, lightning has struck, when you become inspired by something. And that is the fundamental principle of the archetype of Zeus. It is the lightning strike of inspiration to your greater selves and can function as a connection to your higher minds, to the heavens, so to speak.
Yeah. Just on that topic of Greek gods and everything, the way that they were depicted in our history, are they actually just archetypes or were they ETs that were being personalized?
Well, again, both. Many cultures on your planet got to a point where they sort of forgot about the literal physical extraterrestrials that these concepts might have represented and simply rendered them down into the archetypal images that everyone could relate to on an energetic level or a consciousness level or a mental level. Not all of them are representative of literal individual extraterrestrials, but many of them are. It's just that down through time, you have forgotten that connection.
Okay. And are archetypes sentient beings?
They are autonomous unto themselves because, again, every depiction of consciousness in any form is autonomous unto itself as well as being part of the whole.
So is each one of us a unique archetype of God?
You are. Exactly so. That's the final equation to the understanding of archetypes, is that every single one of you and every single being in existence is an archetype of all that is.
Wow. Has your civilization made contact with angels or any other beings of that nature?
We communicate with higher frequency beings all the time. Spirits, what you call angels, which are not necessarily exactly what you think. But yes, vibrationally, we communicate and connect to many different non-physical entities of various vibrational frequencies. It doesn't mean we're connecting to them all. We connect to the ones that are relevant for us.
And how do you express your emotions? Are
Very well,
You
thank you.
are you in control of your emotions?
Well, yes, of course. We simply express them as we naturally do. But the idea is that we also choose as a collective to express the idea of the positive emotions without necessarily invalidating what you would call the negative ones, even though fundamentally no emotion per se is really negative experientially, because it can always be used in a transformational way. But we understand what you mean by that. Nevertheless, we have no reason to express what you typically refer to as the negative emotions, because we understand creation clearly enough that it simply doesn't make sense for us to do that. But if you're asking, are we happy? Do we have a lot of fun? Do we experience love and joy? Absolutely. Do we laugh? Yes.
Have you ever experienced anger?
No.
Even as an aligning thing. So you're beyond needing to align. You're just always aligned. So you wouldn't express that emotion.
Correct. Now, the only way we can relate to it again is by having the incarnations in physical reality that express things that way to train us to understand your culture. So the idea of the emotions that the channel may have experienced, we can connect to them and we can examine and observe and even experience them to some degree. But the thing of it is even though we experience them, we know they're not ours. We know that it's a simulation for us. So we can get what we need out of experiencing the simulation by connecting to the vibrations of physical humans on your planet. But again, we understand it more as an observational experience. And even though we can, to some degree, feel it, we don't feel it in the same way you do, because it doesn't come with the judgmental agenda that you also attach to many of what you call your negative emotions.
So is that how you understood about anger, that you can experience it for, what did you say, about 15 seconds, and beyond that, in that context, it's aligning. Beyond that, it's judgment.
Yes. It's sort of similar to the idea of, let's say you're standing on dry land and you want to know what the experience of being dunked in water is. So someone dunks you in the water, but then puts you right back on dry land. And then you can say, all right, now I understand generally what that experience is about. Now I can explore all the aspects of it, but I don't necessarily experience it as a continuous thing in my culture. It's simply an experimental experience that's temporary, that I can use to the advantage of my understanding and in helping others in their understanding, as we do with all of you.
How would you compare yourselves to like the ETs that were in that movie AI?
They were not ETs, they were advanced robots.
Ah,
That's why we described them before when we were talking about machine civilizations.
I see.
They are what the
And
robots on that planet, on your planet, in that film had become, had evolved to after 2,000 years.
so in terms of your connection with artificial intelligence, can you share anything about that with us?
Well, if I'm still using the same analogy, we are in some ways similar to what was depicted in that movie. In some ways not, of course, but in some ways energetically very similar to what was depicted there.
Interesting. And you're fourth transitioning fifth, right?
Yes,
Density. Right. So that
quasi-physical.
means you're quasi-physical. Because
Yes.
I think some people have the impression that you're not physical.
Oh, yes.
And like, when you say you're quasi-physical, like if we saw you, would you look solid to us?
We can present ourselves as solid, absolutely. But in our natural state, we may not appear that way completely, because we exhibit the traits of spirit and the traits of physical reality. And as I said, we're not just a bunch of physical beings walking around on the surface of a planet. We are actually stepping through multitudes of dimensionality in our daily lives. So we're not always focused in the way that you're focused in physical reality, but we preserve some of that experience, mostly for the purpose, especially from first contact specialists, of interacting with other civilizations who wouldn't necessarily understand us in our natural state.
There's a question here about Andromeda. Are
Yes.
you open to talking about Andromeda?
To an extent.
Okay, so you mentioned that the ratio of folks we connect with in Andromeda Galaxy is about a small percentage of, it was 1% of the Andromeda Galaxy, basically.
1% of the civilizations in Andromeda is mostly what you're interacting with, yes.
Okay. And this individual has been channeling spirit guidance from the Andromeda Galaxy, and they tried to find out more information about it, but they weren't really able to find out much. Something about the light beings inhabiting that civilization and archetypes of God, but
Yes.
they didn't seem to have that much clarity.
All right. Well, the idea of the beings that you are interacting with in Andromeda mostly are light beings, especially because there are very, very few, very rare occurrences of any physiological civilizations actually coming from that galaxy to your galaxy at this particular time. There have been a few, but it's rare. So most of the consciousness that you're interacting with in Andromeda are interdimensional beings of light. Yes.
And are all of the beings of your civilization blessed with what they're calling an activated third eye? The idea that you can use it to communicate with beings on Earth and also use it for remote viewing of other advanced civilizations.
Yes.
Okay.
To be succinct.
Okay. Let's see.
This was our great awakening. This was the Shekinah experience of opening up and our awareness connecting to everyone else in our civilization in the span of 3 days. It's called the Great Awakening, the Shekinah experience.
Will something like that happen on our planet, or that's not really in the cards for us?
It can. It doesn't have to happen that way, but it can. Or at least a similar version of it that's relevant for you can certainly occur.
Maybe on an individual basis.
Maybe more so, but again, eventually, as you shift yourself to versions of Earth that are more reflective of what you really prefer and are more representative of who you truly are, you may suddenly find yourself interacting with every single being that has navigated themselves to a similar version in that way. You can have your awakening in that way, but you might just suddenly realize that it's been happening rather than it being a particular demarcation.
And does mass consciousness create archetypes, or do archetypes exist independently of mass consciousness and we're simply tuning into their frequency?
Since all that is all that is, archetypes exist, but mass consciousness decides how to use the archetypal energy in the way that is relevant for the cultures that will appear in those civilizations.
And if archetypal characters spring from the mass consciousness, well, maybe they don't spring from it, but does there exist archetypal representations of such characters as Paul Bunyan, Uncle Sam, Santa Claus, Mickey Mouse, Superman, and other well-known fictional characters?
Yes, in fact, the idea of fictional characters is that they usually are representations of archetypes.
Okay. And is there, so playing with those archetypes that children are attracted to, or even adults are attracted to, how can that help us to interact with those beings?
Well, by creating stories, by using those archetypes, you can understand your connection to them more fully, more clearly, as representations of your own internal energies, as well as your own choices in life and challenges in life and how to transform them. So archetypes, when used in a fictional story sense, can be very transformative, of course. That's why stories are so strong, because they represent certain ideas, certain experiences that aid and assist you in elevating yourselves and evolving yourselves in a variety of ways. They help you see the light.
So like Mickey Mouse is so popular all over the world. Is there anything specific you can share with us about why that particular archetype is so?
Well, it is an archetype, not the archetype. There are many different versions of that idea, but it is an archetype of innocence and play.
Oh, I see.
of imagination in a
And
childlike way.
and it has the attributes like of the large eyes, the cuteness. That's
Yes.
all kind of
That's what I
baby
said, in a childlike way.
like way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And it also represents the idea that big things can come in small packages.
Yeah, because it is pretty interesting the way so many different cultures have embraced Mickey Mouse.
Yes, because again, it is an archetype of imagination expanding beyond what would appear to be its ability.
Right. I see. Okay, this question this person is asking is, am I dead? You've talked about people who don't know that they're dead, and even though they've transitioned, and they still think they're alive. And could anyone attending this event actually be one of the people who's dead, but they think they're still alive?
Not likely. The
Okay.
idea, however, is when we say you are dead, means that most of you or some of you is still in spirit and always has been. And that the idea of physical reality is just a projection from spirit. It's a dream you're having in spirit that you're not in spirit. So on that level, everyone is dead, but that's how everyone lives. Everyone is alive. So the idea is that the way you apportion your consciousness allows you to experience yourself as being physically alive, even while you are dead, meaning you are alive in spirit. But it is very rare that an actual person who is physically dead will look like a living person in a crowd. It's not impossible, and we can sense that it has happened because there have been many reports of people interacting with what they thought were living people who weren't. So it just depends upon the purpose and the reason for the projection of a spirit consciousness to make itself appear as if it is a living physical person. So it's not impossible. It's just relatively rare and relatively unlikely that a spirit would need to physicalize itself in order to be participating in these events, because there are many spirits that do participate in these events. They just don't have to present themselves as an actual physical being to do so. Though it depends upon, let's just say, their level of mischief.
Um,
I say that with a wink.
that's what I was thinking about, that the higher consciousness extraterrestrials have a wonderful sense of humor, because that
Yes,
seems to come with intelligence
yes,
and can be mischievous, right?
yes.
Not like you're not mischievous, though, are
Oh,
you?
no, not at all.
Okay, let's see. Do others need our help? Do others actually need help with teaching, healing, helping, serving, etc.? We're always tuning into that. And since each person has an infinite version of themselves, aren't we just kind of creating someone who needs help if we think it's our job to be a healer or?
No, no. You may be creating your version of them, but that doesn't mean that there isn't an actual individual that is requiring of assistance. That's the whole idea anyway, to be of service to each other, to reflect to each other who you are and to help with what you need. Again, it doesn't mean that people have to accept the help, but that's the purpose of it, is to reflect to each other what you really need to create scenarios and challenges that will help you learn who you are in different situations. So in that context, if you want to put it this way, everyone needs help. And at the same time, I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm not saying that everyone is helpless. The idea is that everyone needs help as a device in order to learn more about themselves and in order to know that they're connected to other beings, truly, that everyone is a representation of all that is, looking at all the reflections of itself and experiencing that interconnectedness that allows you to know that you are here for each other.
So is suffering necessary for growth?
Challenges are necessary for growth. It doesn't have to mean that you have to suffer, But this is one of the challenges that you're facing, is to learn that you don't have to suffer to have a challenge that will help you grow. We have challenges. We don't suffer.
What kind of challenges do you have?
Well, even the idea of making first contact with a civilization like yours is a wondrous challenge, because you're very different than us. We have learned many things about the way you express yourself. This is a great challenge to know exactly in what way we can be of assistance, in what way to approach you that doesn't intervene or interfere with your process of learning about yourselves. That's a challenge for a first contact specialist, especially when we connect with many different civilizations, all of which are so very different from one another. It's a challenge in that sense to know how to relate to so many different civilizations. It's part of our challenge as a first contact specialist.
It seems like here on Earth, a lot of misinterpretation of information. So that's probably one of the challenges you deal with us, yes?
Yes, absolutely. But we don't suffer because of it.
Because you have a different attitude about our power, so
Yes.
that it's not necessary for you to make that choice.
Let me put it to you this way. If we or you are watching two people play a game of chess, and you say one is winning and one is losing, well, we can observe this, but do we feel that the person that is losing is suffering? Or do we suffer because we recognize that someone may not be winning? No, it's a game of chess. That's what happens. One person may out-strategize another. One person may not understand the rules as clearly as another. One person may simply not be as experienced as another. But all of that goes into the factoring of learning to play the game better. So it's not about suffering. It's about learning. It's about an opportunity to play differently next time. There's no suffering involved in that, if you look at it that way.
Will the version of Earth that you interact with have a reduced level of suffering, or it will have all of the things that we're still currently aware of in our...
Ultimately, in the years to come, the decades to come, you will not experience the idea on that version of Earth of suffering. You will be similar to us, not identical, but similar. But it's up to you as to exactly how long it takes you to navigate to that version or versions, because again, you always keep navigating, you always keep changing. But you can get to a point where you don't have to experience suffering on the versions that you're navigating through. As we have often said, even though you may be at a point sometime where you don't necessarily need to let go of negative beliefs or fear-based beliefs anymore, you will still continue to streamline yourselves by simply letting go of what is no longer relevant. Doesn't mean that that thing that's no longer relevant had to have been negative. It's simply no longer relevant. Therefore, even though you may arrive eventually at a place where you don't experience suffering anymore, you will still have things to learn and things to let go of as you learn more and more about who and what you are as an extension of all that is. So yes, you can get there. But again, not everyone will necessarily choose to go in that direction.
So if a human does encounter another being suffering, and it seems to generate an emotional reaction from us,
yes,
to see something suffering,
then help them.
Right. So, but how would you, when you see a being suffering?
Yes,
versus...
like many of you.
And then
what do we do? What do we do?
Well, you
share the information. We take the action of sharing the information with you that can help you learn to stop suffering. But we also let you decide whether or not to apply that in your lives, because what you do with it is none of our business. So we make the opportunity available to you through our actions of communication, but that's all we can do, and that's all anyone can do. But you can share ideas that are different.
But you still don't have like the visceral reaction that we do, right?
No, because we see your greater selves. We know how powerful you are. We know that you are challenging yourselves in a variety of ways. We know that you're indestructible spirits and can't ever really die or annihilate yourselves. So we understand that you chose many of these challenges to learn who you are in all these different ways. We're here to help you learn that you can do it slightly differently so you don't have to suffer in that knowledge, in that exploration. But that's about it. Because the rest is up to you.
So like we noticed that people who experience the horrors of war and things like that, they're quite traumatized and they have post-traumatic stress disorder and all of that. So I'm not sure I understand exactly how.
Let me give it to you this way. Again, it depends on how you use everything. Like we have said, it's not about what happens. It's about what you do with what happens that makes the difference. So even what you call PTSD can be a vibration that creates a pressure that forces a soul to really explore its options in another direction. It can be the driving force that makes a person look for another way, another path. It depends on how you use it. So if a person has put themselves in a position, in an experience, in a situation, in a circumstance where they create for the physical form a PTSD experience, they had a reason for doing so. And if they can allow themselves to remember that they can use that to their advantage, they may have done that, chosen that to accelerate their ability to move forward much more quickly than they otherwise would have, then that's a way to look at the idea of having chosen that situation to begin with. Because again, to the soul, it's just another way of knowing yourself.
Right.
Nothing is judged.
It's really about being able to expand to a higher level of yourself so that you don't have that effect, basically.
Yes. So that you understand how things work enough so that you know you can apply different definitions and different meanings to every experience so that you can take responsibility for having chosen the kind of experience you attracted to yourself or that you attracted yourself to in order to learn from it in a more powerful way. Because those things that you call negative, that you call horrific, do have the tendency to wake you up. So wake up.
And like in the past, humans would really get into a lot of blood sports, and huge crowds like to watch people being hung and, all the things that we've seen humans get excited about.
Yes.
And now we have most of that like on television.
Yes.
And so can you help us understand a little bit about what the function of that is or how that fits in?
Well, I think you already know, and many people on your planet understand these things can be cathartic. To put it in the simplest possible terms, you can work through some of that negative energy by watching a fictional character go through it without you having to experience it yourself. So if I really want to put it in the simplest possible phrase, it would be, well, thank goodness that's not me. But it can still allow you to feel the emotional responses and reactions that help you process those things within yourself, sometimes without even knowing you're doing so. So it can be cathartic if used that way. It can also be a representation of someone who has chosen to feel stuck in negative energy. But again, it comes down to how do you use the experience?
So along those lines, like when children watch violence, they tend, at least studies show that they start acting it out. And
yes, because they are taught that that's the way civilization exists and that that's inevitable for them. But you see, it has to go hand in hand with teaching them how things work. It's not just about letting them be exposed to the idea of the negativity without also exposing them to the idea that they have power to choose how to deal with it. So when a civilization is only left with one side of the equation, then yes, of course, they'll act that out because they're being taught this is the way our civilization is and this is what I'm supposed to do because that's what they taught me. You have to have the other side taught as well. You're out of balance. As you say, koyana.
Okay. I guess the last question then, as we're running out of time, is if you could share anything with us about the lunar eclipse that happened 2 nights ago, and how that impacts our planet or the people on our planet, in a positive way.
Remember, these things do not impact, they reflect things going on in your consciousness already. So again, it's an opportunity to go into the dark of night, into the shadow side. Find those fear-based beliefs and work with them. Find the feminine side and let it free. Balance. It's an opportunity to close your eyes and dream of the way you prefer to be. And in connection with the idea of lunar cycles, we will also answer another question you haven't asked. Where did the 52 card system come from in your playing cards? 52, the number of weeks in your year. 13 cards in each of the 4 suits, the lunar cycle of months in a year, and the 4 suits, the 4 seasons. So you're tapping as a permission slip into the cycles of nature by playing cards, whether you know it or not. We thank you for the interaction with these questions and answers. Our unconditional love to you all. And now, allow yourself to be prepared for the next phase of the transmission.
Return to Earth and retrieve the 13 crystal skulls and unite them. And thank you, dear Morning Star. Thank you, dear Merkaba Morning Star, for being the embodiment of this unification of the heaven-earth co-creation. Thank you.
Aveo. There is nothing I really need to add to this except again to say that the only way to navigate to that is to follow the formula.
Good day, Bashar. How are you?
Perfect. And you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you.
All right.
So the fun thing about this timing is, I think it was last year, November, we spoke. And when I was talking to you, I had a bald eagle that showed up.
Yeah,
and interestingly enough, I had a bald eagle show up yesterday in San Diego. And I thought that was very auspicious. And then I'm now in Maui celebrating a birthday gift to myself, and a conversation I had with a friend, Koa. He brought up the star Altair, and it felt very reverent, or very significant. I should say I had reverence for the conversation, but significant to bring up to you. Do you have anything you want to share about that star?
Altair can be representative of higher frequencies, of soaring on a higher level, of connecting more strongly with the higher mind.
Ooh, can you say a little bit more about that?
In understanding that when you decide to have what you call a physical incarnational experience, there is always the higher mind that is non-physical that still exists in the spirit level simultaneously. Now, the higher mind and physical mind can decide, in a sense, together, when you arrange or set up the idea of the physical experience, exactly how much energy you will allot from the non-physical to the physical realm. Will you allow it to be a 50-50 partnership proposition? Will you allow the physical mind to experience less than 50% or more than 50% of the energy that you are in total? The vibration that you're referring to as the energy of Altair allows for the incorporation of more energy overall, a sharing of the energy in a more balanced way between the higher and physical minds, so that you can experience things in the way sometimes that the higher mind experiences them from the broader point of view. The vibration of Altair, therefore, is symbolic of the idea of a true partnership on a higher level and a balance point that allows you to grow and expand in a very balanced way, experiencing more of what the higher mind experiences while you are still physical, and therefore allowing you to experience both the attributes of spirit and the attributes of physical reality, similar in the way to our civilization being quasi-physical and having the traits of spirit and the traits of physical beings simultaneously.
That's perfect. So the thing that I actually really wanted to talk to you about is the experiences I'm having where I feel like I'm dreaming in my wake state, and
Yes.
everything
You
very
are.
malleable. And it feels like lucid dreaming, where there's awareness that I'm dreaming, but able to shift and change things.
Yes, and that is also the vibration specifically of the symbol of Altair, is the concept of achieving lucidity.
And so that brings me to again, I have such appreciation for you and your teachings, especially the formula, the amount of synchronicity, and it feels like magic in my life from following my highest excitement this trip specifically. And so the idea of the lucidity in my waking state, seeing things before they happen, getting things manifesting what almost feels like out of thin air, is occurring in weird ways, and small things and big things, and just the signs and symbols that keep coming up. So the eagles and the hawks and the crows continue to be a fun symbol.
Yes. Well, this is the new normal on your planet.
Perfect. That's perfect. And the only other thing I want to mention is the idea of symbols. When we spoke the last time, you had mentioned about the birds and my connection, and to give them the meaning, the symbols that were meaningful to me. And so I just love the synchronicity of the conversation of Altair. And is there any symbol with eagles specifically? There was an eagle that came to me in a vision that I didn't know was a real thing, the Batalor eagle. It's a tricolored eagle, and that keeps coming up. Is there anything that you want to add about that?
You can investigate some of the indigenous understanding of the reference and symbol of what the eagle represents to the American Indian.
Okay. Thank you, Bashar. Good day. I appreciate you.
Good day.
Hi, Bashar. My name is River. I'm coming to you from Temecula, California. I would love to ask about these different archetypes that I've been getting in plant medicine journeys recently. And it's the same archetypes over and over again. One is Santa Fe, and the element of like dry desert, sand, and just like a lot of smoke, and the archetype of a pregnant woman with brown skin. And another archetype that's been coming up has been ayahuasca, and specifically like the snake in the rainforest. Very much a lot of humidity and water and earth, and then lastly, another archetype of sailing a ship, being a sailor, the captain of a ship, and feeling the waves and the rocking of the water of the sea. And I was just wondering if you could shine some light, your perspective on these archetypes. And typically I've noticed that I'm more of a male character as a sailor, and then for ayahuasca, that archetype is more woman and snake kind of energy. So anything you had to say about that, I would love to hear. Thank you.
This is actually a number of different things all mixed together. First of all, some of this is what you refer to typically in linear terms as memories of other lives. Now, again, everything exists simultaneously, but you make energetic connections to other beings that exist, whether you think of them as the past or the future, doesn't matter. Everything exists in the present. But linearly speaking, you usually call these things past life memories. So the idea of the sailing on the ocean and so on and so forth is more in that direction of connecting your energy to beings that are sailors and merchants and traders, exchanging goods and information across vast oceans as a symbolic archetypal representation of the exchange of information between different levels of your consciousness in order to make stronger connections and stronger bonds to integrate yourself more fully. The idea of the ayahuasca and the teachers of the earth and the idea of the Southwest is more a representation of connections to indigenous American Indian experiences and shamanistic experiences also in South American jungles. The idea being also that you're attempting to integrate and balance the masculine and feminine energies within yourself, And the snake represents the idea of ancient wisdom that makes you pregnant with new ideas to bring forth a new you. So the idea of the polarization of the dry desert sands and the lush humidity of the jungles is also what you're exploring and bringing into integration, are those ideas of what may seem to be opposites, and yet they all come from the same basic central source. So all of this has to do with interconnection, forming stronger bonds between different aspects of your consciousness, the physical mind, the higher mind, the polarization of different experiences and environments that you're connecting to that allow you for stronger integration within yourself of many different aspects that will allow yourself to be born anew as a new person. So you have many different symbols here archetypally to help you understand the integration going on in your journey right now.
Hello, Bashar.
Good day. Good day.
I have a few questions about emotions in the home. And the first one is, how come our emotions are displayed more intensely and deeply in the home and family rather than at work or socially?
Because in the home, you have the ability to understand where the emotions come from and go through whatever process you need on a personal level to allow your belief systems to be sorted out and to be chosen based on what you prefer. Whereas when you are in a working situation, the idea then is to bring what you've learned about being who you are and applying it to a team effort, so to speak, rather than working on the idea in a more personal and private way when you have the time to do so. So one is inner work, and one is the result of the inner work going into outer work.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I relate to that. Thank you.
Yes.
And so when we're triggered emotionally in the home, it can look like we regress to the age, maybe that possible trauma happened. Is that what happens? Because, you can just get like childlike sometimes, whether it's you or your partner or...
Yes, you take on the vibration. You don't have to take on the vibration of the timing of the occurrence. But again, the idea is to allow yourself to understand how you can benefit from what you experienced and how you can become a different person that no longer has that history.
And sometimes it's harder than others. So is that just practice? Like you see the same kind of pattern happening again. Is that just practice of mindfulness and just growth?
Yes. But again, it can be an indication of what kind of beliefs you're specifically holding on to that don't necessarily allow you to move forward. So remember, there's no such thing as an inherently difficult situation. Only the belief makes it seem difficult. And if you understand how beliefs work and how they do that to perpetuate themselves, speaking of negative beliefs, then that's something to understand more clearly as well. Because sometimes it may not even be that you really have that much left to work on, but the negative belief may not want you to let it go, and therefore it may make it seem that there's more there than meets the eye.
So it can just go and repeat until you kind of understand that, get that at a deeper level.
Exactly, because that's one of the tricks of the negative belief, is making you think that, well, this is going to happen again, and well, this is going to happen again, and well, this is going to happen again, and well, this is going to happen again. And that just keeps you in a loop that doesn't really allow you to realize you may have actually already dealt with this. It's the last vestige. It's one of the tricks that represents the last vestige of a negative belief attempting to prevent you from letting it go. That's just how negative beliefs perpetuate themselves. So there may be nothing left to really look at, but the negative belief may convince you that you'll keep revisiting this.
Yeah, tricky.
Yes, very. So when you understand how negative beliefs work, you'll start to see through the smoke and mirrors. Now, if there is truly something for you to deal with, then you'll find that too. But pay attention to the fact that negative beliefs may be giving you empty threats when there's nothing to resolve anymore.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. It's really helpful.
You're welcome.
And so our family ancestors, their unresolved emotional issues, do they get passed down until someone in the family lineage evolves them? Like their negative beliefs, say my great-grandmother's negative belief, if she never transformed that, that's going to be somewhere in me and coming through?
Possibly. It depends on the agreements that you have made and your relationship to the idea of your family. Now, Other people will also, in some way, shape, or form, on some level, continue to also resolve those things in their own way, on their own path. But yes, you may have agreed to play a part in helping to resolve that issue for the family. It just depends on your agreements.
Okay. And the home, is the home, the vibration of the home, is it a reflection of our higher selves? You know how like your ships can be a reflection of your higher self. Do our homes have a similar vibration for us?
Well, they can, but usually on your planet at this point and for some time, they've been more a reflection of the agreements that you've made with each other as a soul family.
Okay, and with those agreements as a soul family, when we do resolve them,
yes,
and somewhat, embrace the differences rather than make them wrong or try and make them a different way,
then you tap into the possibility of the home becoming the higher mind.
That's what I thought. Okay, that's what I was about to ask. That's the idea, is not to have a fake existence in the home, but it's to get to a point of complete peace around each other, because it does feel more intense in the home than anywhere else.
Well, yes, because that's where you've agreed to work on these things with each other. Because it's more intimate, it's more personal.
And then when we, as a collective family, whether we're conscious of it or not, but we're at peace with each other, that creates a vibration that can, I don't know, can it create a vibration where we can connect deeper to our ancestors or to beings like yourself because of that?
Of course. Okay, right. As you raise your frequency in any way, shape, or form, by resolving an issue, by following your passion, by clearing yourself out of things that are not vibrationally compatible with you, you raise your frequency. And as you raise your frequency, you make yourself become a better antenna for higher frequency information and experiences and connections.
So if a family can become at that vibration, then together we can all be that for each other.
Yes, of course. That's what you actually are for each other, whether you know it or not. It's just that because you have made certain agreements to process through certain things so you can discover, who am I in this situation? Who am I facing this challenge? Who am I in that circumstance? You're reflecting to each other what you've agreed you need to know for your own expansion, self-discovery, and growth.
Yeah, so as well as like my brother sometimes could be reflecting a part of my own unconscious that I'm not yet strong enough to see. So I see it in him.
Yes.
And then I can take it. Yeah. Okay.
It can be that. It can be that. It doesn't always have to be, but it can be that. You have to pay attention and have the discernment to decide what's going on.
Okay.
And that just takes honest self-investigation. Yes. Just takes honest
and
self-investigation.
And a lot of patience.
No, takes no patience at all. None whatsoever. The only reason you need patience is because you become impatient with what's going on in the moment. If you live fully in the moment, you are completely engaged. There's nothing better that you think is coming along, and therefore you will not be impatient because you do not require patience to be in the moment.
I am choosing to believe that. So it's my negative belief that would say, or anyone's that would say, it's somewhat more challenging to do it in the home or family, or that's because I've made the contracts with those people.
Yes.
So there's a different vibration.
Of course there's a different vibration. But again, it can be challenging, but challenges do not have to be a struggle.
Good. Another great point, Bashar.
Thank you.
Another great point. You're welcome. Okay, well, that's my questions. Thank you so much.
Aveo.
Yeah, unconditional love.
And to you as well.
Thank you.
Slips literally stop working overnight, and I've noticed that particularly the process of wondering, the frequency of wonder, is coming online as a very simple yet absolutely powerful tool to create your preferred reality and preferred experiences. I was wondering if you could shed some light on the process of wondering and the frequency of wonder from your perspective. Thank you very much. Bye.
The frequency of wonder is the frequency of the soul, the frequency of curiosity and wonderment, amazement and beauty, is coming directly from your connection to your own soul, expressing more of the soul vibration through you physically. The idea of the change in permission slips is usually an indication of this, that you are accelerating, that you are not holding on to anything that doesn't serve you and letting it go very rapidly, that you will ultimately realize you are the permission slip, the primary one that makes the decisions about what changes to make within yourself. So this is a sign usually of an acceleration and a connection more strongly to the idea of bringing more of your soul's energy through your physical form.
Hello, Bashar.
Good day.
I'm really grateful for the chance to talk to you today.
It is our deepest appreciation to experience the co-creation of this interaction.
So, my mom committed suicide a few weeks ago.
All right.
And it's brought up a lot of questions for me about your teachings that I'd like to explore.
By all means.
So everyone tells me that there's nothing I could have done or been differently in order to help, and that it wasn't anything that I was doing that led to the creation of that manifestation.
Yes, you made an agreement. You made an agreement with each other that this might be likely to happen. But again, it's not that it had to, but certainly you are not to be blamed for anything because other people make choices.
It's that I see a lot of parallels between it and my process and my thinking and my experience. Like, I held the idea of her intention for the last few years, and she seemed to be held in suffering during that time. Yeah. And then literally like 2 days after I decided I was ready to open my heart and start to forgive her and look for a new relationship, she killed herself.
Well, now you have one. Now you have the relationship. By opening your heart, it let her know she could move on and develop a relationship with you from a higher plane. She will still make choices to allow her in some way, shape, or form to finish whatever it is she may not have completed in terms of the choices that she made, in terms of the reasons why she may have chosen that. In exploring her life review, she may realize at some point she may have to experience certain challenges that are similar again in order to go towards completeness because she made a commitment to do so. Nevertheless, the choice to transition into spirit at that time can be of great assistance to you by allowing you to develop a relationship with her higher self. By stretching to make a connection, you stretch towards spirit, and that can help you, in a loving way, learn more about your spiritual connections as well. So please do understand that the relationship still exists. And now she is free from whatever it is she may have been experiencing that made that seem like the only choice. She will use it to her advantage, but for right now, her focus is on making sure you use the experience to your advantage to become more of who you are, knowing that she now, from that position, loves you unconditionally and is free from all pain and suffering.
And I've had pretty good clarity on that. I've honestly experienced this as the deepest healing process of my life. It has been transforming me.
Yes.
And I think the only thing that keeps me looking backwards is this idea of responsibility. And was it, did I hold her in pain? And is it because of my process that her journey went this way?
No. She is capable of making her own decisions.
So in that vein, since we're constantly navigating different realities billions of times a second, I'm also wondering, why did I find myself in the one where this happened instead of one where she would seem to stick around longer or her life experience could play out differently?
Because of what it's going to teach you that you felt was important for you to learn. You haven't really learned it completely yet. So you're asking about an agreement you made that hasn't played completely out yet.
So I understand how it could be the perfect reflection for me and like for my process.
Yes.
But then I wonder.
Yes.
So yes, you're talking about her and how she's doing fine in spirit and she made her choice.
Yes.
But since we're continuously creating our experience of others out of different, distinct, parallel reality versions of them.
Yes.
Who was I in relationship with? And which version of her will I be connected with in spirit?
A different version, a greater self. More of who she actually is as a reflection of the infinite.
I guess
whatever it is you need is what you will connect to in her.
Yeah. Sorry for kind of nervously talking over you. It's
no,
like,
that's all right.
So I guess I'm wondering about whether or not she's real in and of herself, or
Yes, of course she is. That doesn't mean you're not creating your version of it.
so if she has her own reality, how can it be that there are some where she doesn't do this and some where she does do this?
Because
isn't there
you're talking about a much higher level of the being that can experience many different things simultaneously. Right now, you're focused on what you understand as the spirit individual that represented your mother. That's the level that we're addressing right now. But on a much greater level, remembering that you are all that is, you can experience everything and anything simultaneously. It just depends on what level of the consciousness you're referring to when you talk about forming a relationship with it.
But she does have her own experience and her own choices, and she's not just a character on my screen or something.
No, you didn't make her up. The idea is everyone is a fundamental existing being, but you still create your version as an interface to relate to. That's like saying, you understand when you have a telephone conversation with a friend, you're not actually hearing their real voice? You're hearing a recreation electronically that sounds like them, but they have their own voice. It's just converted into electronic signals that are reconstituted into audio signals at your end. So it's like that. You're creating your version that you can relate to, even though she has her own reality, just as she creates her version of you, even though you have your own reality. Just like the telephone recreates the voice that isn't the original voice, but it's representative of something that is real.
Yeah, so my whole life I've been recreating her out of many possible variants to create the experience I've needed of her.
Yes, exactly. As she has done with you.
But then in spirit, where we are connected in a continuous relationship is on a higher level of like all my possibilities, all her possibilities.
Well, yes, those that are relevant for whatever level you happen to be exploring, yes.
So then would it be that like when I'm in spirit, it's kind of like my oversoul is, because sometimes you've said that when we lose someone, they don't really miss us because they're already with us in spirit. And is that like an oversoul and an oversoul together?
Well, no, it's more like the higher mind. The oversoul is something even higher. But the idea is, again, it is a more direct connection with the reality of the being. Remember that physical reality is a projection of consciousness. It's a dream. That's why you kind of have to create your version in the way that you do. Now, you're still creating your version even in spirit, but it's a closer connection to the reality of the person, the reality of the being. There's less in the way. There's less you have to recreate.
I think there's a lot I'll have to listen back to, and I might not fully understand all of this.
That's
but
all right.
I think what's been important to me is to understand that she exists in her own right, and that I didn't make this in some tragic way where it was my fault.
No, it's not your fault.
One of the thoughts that kept recurring was like that if I had had more space in my heart for her sooner, there would have been space in my world for her.
Yes, but you see, the idea of opening your heart is the point, and it didn't have to result in the idea of her choosing to stay. In fact, the idea of the opening of your heart continues in the relationship that you will be forming with her as she is now. That's the point.
Yeah, and that's what I'm reaching for, is the ability to relax into this and receive all the gifts that it offers without holding myself in blame and guilt.
Exactly. So her transition into spirit gives you a wonderful opportunity to accelerate the process of opening your heart and being more of yourself.
It's happening.
Yes. And therefore it was a very loving thing for her to do. And this was done by arrangement and agreement between the two of you.
Wonderful to connect with you. Thank you for helping me today.
And you as well. It is our passion and our pleasure to do so. Good day.
Good day.
The God essence, because it comes from within us. Would you agree?
Yes. And that's what I said. The I am that I am. But it doesn't matter what you call it.
Right. But isn't that primary for us to understand as humans, as opposed to putting it outside of us?
It is a primary understanding that will allow you to experience yourself in a much broader, greater way. But it's not absolutely essential if you have decided to experience a theme or a challenge that prevents you from understanding that in a particular life, because that can be a learning experience as well. But nevertheless, whether you learn it or not, It is the primary truth. It exists that way, whether you realize it or not. But yes, the realization of it is what allows you to grow and discover yourself from many different points of view.
Right. So let me ask you, these past 2 years that we've been sort of in this transition period with the whatever's been going on, have they been a vibrational adjustment for us to prepare for first contact?
Partly, yes. But again, a vibrational adjustment for you to be able to be more of yourselves, which is preparation for open contact, because only by being more of yourselves will you be prepared for open contact.
Now, partly what's been coming out from the government side of disclosure is that these, in this latest book called Skinwalker at the Pentagon, they talk about the paranormal element of the contact experience. And they say there's a negative aspect to these orbs that are appearing. Is there a way to turn that negative aspect around and make it a positive thing that the government is not seeing?
Yes, of course. First and foremost, by understanding that what they're saying about there being a negative aspect is false. It's their reflection, their experience of their own fear-based belief system that is allowing them to experience it as a negative aspect. But the essence of the phenomenon in and of itself is not presenting itself in a negative way. But it is calling forth from those that experience it the idea, as we have described before, of bringing their consciousness into closer contact with their own fear-based beliefs, which allows them to project upon the phenomenon the idea that it is the phenomenon that is negative, instead of facing the fact that it is their own belief system that is negative.
So when we change our beliefs, of course, you've talked about this, the not just everything else, but our relationship to first contact or contact changes.
Yes, of course.
And then, so we are in this incubation process, and is there something we need to do more of in order to activate the consciousness? Yes, follow your excitement, all that. And
why would you think there would be more than that? We have given you the formula and told you that it is a complete kit and leaves nothing relevant out. We give it to you that way and are explaining it that way, so you won't have to ask, is there more? That's the full instruction manual. All you have to do is actually act on it precisely and completely, and you will understand how it works, and you will understand there doesn't need to be anything more unless you decide that you wish to add something to it for the purposes of experiencing your own self-chosen process. But beyond that, there is no more. Follow the instructions, follow the formula, and you will open all of the tools that automatically are built into it, and you will get exactly what you need, exactly when you need to get it. You don't need anything more than that. Keep it simple. Don't overthink it.
Is there a particular reason you wanted to talk about archetypes today? Is there something more than our expansion of consciousness we need to embrace with that concept?
It's about understanding yourselves as aspects, true reflections of all that is. And the next transmission, titled Mirror, Mirror, will help drive this home more deeply within you, so you can really start experiencing yourself as an aspect, as a spark of the light of all that is. So yes, we build upon different things one at a time, building them up in a way that we perceive will work for those who understand and are willing to understand these concepts and take them to heart.
Are we still on track or are things shifting as you see it, as far as first contact coming in the next 10 or 15 years?
In general, you are still on track, but again, it depends on what you decide to do in the years ahead that will shift you to different versions of Earth that may already be experiencing the idea of open contact.
Thank you, Bashar.
Good day.
Thank you.
Hello, Bashar. This is Sandra from Miami, Florida. I had a dream that I would like your insights on. On September 30th, in the middle of the night, I was awakened by a sensation of like being plugged into a current of electricity, so to speak. My whole body it felt like it was vibrating, and I was perceiving a presence of an ET, a male, and I just remember being afraid to look up into his face because I was kind of afraid of being afraid, which I guess is another belief I can take a look at. And I just wanted to know what truly happened in that moment, and if that sensation of electricity or vibration was my own resistance. Any insights would be appreciated. Thank you and good day.
All right. Well, yes, the energy was your own energy, and there was some resistance, but this is what we've described before as the reason why we can't just land. There may be many extraterrestrial forms that you can interact with relatively easily, but some extraterrestrial forms, including ours, operate on a much different frequency domain than you. We come from a parallel reality that is 10 times faster than yours. And the idea of being exposed directly to our energy physically would, in fact, allow all of the different kinds of fear-based belief systems within you to be forced to the surface and can cause the idea of psychic shock. So we give you this information to allow you the process of transforming yourself and raising your frequency in a way that is safe for you to meet our frequency more easily, become more vibrationally compatible with higher frequency beings so that you can interact with them without resistance and without experiencing the idea of what you experienced and the fears you experienced in that encounter. Nevertheless, you were given enough of the difference in energy between you and a higher being, a higher frequency being, to allow you to integrate that energy within yourself, to get used to the idea that you're experiencing your own energy on a higher level, and therefore raise to that frequency, to meet that frequency, to become more vibrationally compatible with the being that you're dealing with, which is most likely a counterpart version of you in another reality that's helping you bootstrap yourself up the frequency ladder. So have fun with it. Don't be afraid. But if fear comes up, find the belief system that generates the fear. Because remember, you can't have an emotional experience without believing something to be true first. So you're given an opportunity by experiencing the fear to examine those areas in your consciousness where you have a belief that would generate the fear you experienced in that encounter. Remember, you're fundamentally an indestructible being. So there's nothing to be afraid of. Nothing can truly annihilate you. Even though your survival mechanisms in the lower part of your brain may kick in, there is really nothing to be afraid of.
Hello.
Good day.
Hello, Bashar.
Good day.
Really I am really excited to be communicating with you right now, and we've been in conversation for quite some time. And I was thinking today about how quite some time ago connected around the idea of anima, one of your social engineers, and in a discussion of art. And I feel like the project that, maybe some seeds were planted way back when is now coming more into bloom. And it's an interesting moment because I'm about to transition into having my time to myself to create in a way that I haven't before. So
how exciting.
It's incredibly exciting. And I've really been using, the formula to work with that and like keeping my mind open, even as it's like twisted and turned in interesting ways. So I'm just curious if there's anything, any follow up with anima around this like art project.
All right. Are you having fun doing this, I assume?
Yes, I am.
All right. Well, what else do you need to know except to keep moving forward and exercise your creative imagination?
I don't really need to know anything more, but it would be interesting to know more if there was anything specific, because I was just reflecting on
All
that.
Right. Well, let me ask you the question. Why do you think that you're missing something?
I don't know that I feel like I'm missing something.
But you're asking, is there anything more? Which implies that you think something's missing.
That's a good point.
Thank
you always
you.
make really good points, Bashar. I guess I was just curious about it. If
you were missing something?
If there was more to unfold in that particular direction.
Do you feel like you're not doing enough? That you're not expressing the idea of your art as fully as you possibly could be? Are you holding back your creative imagination in one direction or another?
I think to some extent I was, but I don't think that that's going to be true going forward, because I will have more energy to dedicate to that more specifically.
Is there a particular expression that you're more excited about than any other that you haven't begun expressing yet?
Not exactly. It's more that I feel that I have to rush when I'm doing it, because
Why?
there were other things. Why?
Yes, why? Do you not believe in the understanding of synchronicity's perfect timing?
I do, but I still get caught up in.
Excuse me. When a person on your planet says, I do, but, that means they don't.
Fair enough. Can you understand it sometimes and not other times?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
But the idea is, why don't you understand it at other times? It's fine when you understand it and move forward in the way that works for you and is representative of your passion. But we don't have to talk about that. We're talking about the times when you don't stay in that vibration and what would be the reason for that. So let's go back to what you said. Why do you believe you have to rush? What's your hurry? Do you have a deadline?
Sure. I think I'm just transitioning out of that. And I guess this is that transition that a lot of us are going through, of letting go of things that we don't really need to hold on to anymore. So I think I'm at one of that, major stages right now of letting that go.
All right. Congratulations. Do you understand the paradox that sometimes you have to slow down to speed up?
Sure. Yes. That I've experienced viscerally. Yeah.
All right. Well, would you like to keep experiencing it?
Sure.
Then why choose anything else? Why choose any reason that takes you out of that state, if that's what you say you prefer to be in? Why?
I think I'm sometimes influenced by the people around me.
You are never influenced by the people around you. You take upon yourself to influence yourself based on what others may say or do, but they don't actually ever directly influence you. You influence yourself based on some reason for matching the frequency that they're offering you. So why would you do that if those frequencies are not vibrationally compatible with what you prefer?
And would that mean that empathy is that different than empathy? Or I might be just, I think
there is a difference, because empathy and compassion can allow you to understand what a person may be experiencing for themselves, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you take that energy on yourself, that you convert your own vibrational frequency in a way that allows you to feel more than you need to understand. Empathy is more of a vibrational matching just for the purpose of understanding. Whereas, just to use another word in your language, if you overly sympathize with someone, then you may be taking on the vibration beyond what you need to simply understand them, and you may then be starting to actually match the negative frequencies that they may be giving off and experiencing some of what they're experiencing. Now, again, some people can use that to positive effect, but is that what you need to do with your art?
No. I don't think so.
All right. Art in its various forms is a mirror that allows people that are looking at the art, looking at the mirror, to see different aspects and understand different aspects of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use your experiences with other people and put it in your art, if you wish, in a way that allows people to understand the things that you are observing, the things you're understanding about your relationship to other people. But certainly you don't have to ever stop yourself by lowering your vibration to a level that doesn't necessarily represent where you prefer to be. Unless, again, you're making an art out of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still your choice.
Right.
Remember, that's your greatest power, the freedom to choose.
Right.
So, whenever you may choose something that you don't really prefer, stop, take a moment, take a breath, and ask yourself, what is the reason I'm creating, even in an artistic way, to make this choice? Do I really have a positive reason for doing this? Can I apply this in a positive way? Or do I really need to do this at all? Take the
Right.
time to examine those things and find out what the reasons are for why you would choose to do what you're doing and why you would choose to experience and feel what you're feeling and experiencing, because that's the result of a belief.
You're right.
Yes, I know. That's why I said it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, thank you, Bashar. As always, I appreciate our interactions and thank you.
Did that serve you?
It did.
All right, then we thank you for your interaction. Have a good day.
You too.
Always.